Welcome to the Life's Better podcast, where we say life is so much better with God, community, and purpose. On today's show, we're going to be asking the question, have you learned how to ask for help? This is oftentimes one of the last things that we want to do, but maybe it needs to become one of the first things that we do. My name is Jonathan Gleason. I'm joined by my co-host, Josh Doolin, who passionately loves his wife, and she's pretty into you too, even though you have not figured out the whole bedwetting thing.
Oh, yeah.
Josh was telling me about an incident last night and really embarrassing. But for those of you who don't like sarcasm, we'll just move right into today's show. When it comes to asking for help, not all of us like to do it, but it's something that we probably need to start doing. We're going to kind of introduce this idea by playing a little game. Josh, I'm going to give you some names of some relatively famous people. I say relatively because they're really more known for supportive roles. So if you don't know them, that's okay. If you do, you get a point. Okay. And those points really do nothing besides allow those who are listening and viewing to cheer you on. Yeah. So, all right.
And
first
to know
name.
My taste, I guess. Okay.
What's that?
And to know my taste, I guess.
Yeah. Do you happen to know the name Steve Wozniak?
I do not.
Okay, you probably know his counterpart, another Steve, by the name of Steve Jobs.
Okay, yeah, I know Steve Jobs.
Both of them founded Apple Computer. Now, we know Steve Jobs because he was really good at self-promotion, as well as just business in general. But without the help of Wozniak, Apple Computer would never have existed. Wozniak had the skills with the computer, the computer science, the programming, all of that. Without his help, we would probably not have Apple computers and the whole business.
That's cool.
Let me give you another name. This one is Elizabeth Cady Stanton.
No, I don't know her either.
Again, her partner in crime is a household name. Susan B. Anthony?
Yes, okay.
Okay, yeah. Both of them working together were really instrumental in the women's suffrage movement, better known today as women's rights. But Elizabeth Cady Stanton actually took more of a back seat. She had a family, she had children of her own. Susan B. Anthony was able to hit the road, kind of do the speaking engagements, while really the role of editing and writing and those things went to Cady Stanton. So anyway, there's a little history there. All right, last one. I'm hoping you can get this one. We'll see. Ruth Graham. Think of that last name. That last name is really going to help you. Ruth Graham.
My goodness. All I'm thinking of is the senator named Lindsey Graham, maybe his wife. I don't know.
So Ruth Graham would be the wife of the probably most famous
Billy Graham.
20th century
Okay.
evangelist. Yeah, we're gonna have to take your Christian card away from you for that one. No, it's okay, Josh. When she passed away, actually before Billy Graham did, Billy Graham said that she was the best Christian that he had ever known. And a lot of people credit his ministry being as effective as it was because of her supportive role, helping him along. Now, in our lives, again, sometimes it's really hard for us to ask for help. We have, and I don't know if this is an American thing, I don't know if this is just a people thing, but there seems to be this fierce independence. We think that, we point to people like Steve Jobs and say, oh, wow, look at amazing things that he was able to do, and he did it all by himself. How did he do that? But it's just not true. He had supporting characters all throughout his career, and that really goes for anyone who does anything great. So I want to just kind of find out from you. Well, let me ask you this in just a moment. I was introduced to a book recently. It was actually written by an individual by the name of Wayne Baker. And the book is called All You Have to Do Is Ask. And he basically says that asking for help is the most important skill for success. Now, that's a pretty bold statement. Asking for help is the most important thing for success. We might be able to argue that that's not true, but I don't think we have to look very far to realize that there is some truth in it for sure. And so the question I want to ask you is, Josh, what is something that you have done, that you've accomplished, that you're pretty proud of?
So you gave me some prep work to think about, and honestly, the thing that comes to mind first, and it's not to get me brownie points or no, maybe a little bit, but it's accomplishing the proposal plan that I had set out to do, and like everything went off without a hitch, and Emily was none the wiser, and it went.
Now this was like marriage proposal.
Yes, marriage proposal.
Yeah. This was done 4 years ago.
It was 4 years ago.
Okay,
that's crazy. Wow, yeah.
The fact that she said yes.
5 years ago.
Is it 5 years?
4 years. Marriage.
Okay, so
5 years ago was when I proposed.
Good call.
Yeah.
Good call.
And I would have been like, "What? No, it's 5."
Marriage for proposed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Very good. Now let me ask you this: were you able to successfully make that proposal all on your own?
No, not at all.
Name some of the key players that actually allowed you to be successful in this.
So, for one, we disguised my grandpa's birthday celebration as like a way to get us all together. So that was great for him to let me do that. But I think the biggest key player was my dad, because part of the whole thing was to try to get her from the restaurant we were at to the place it was going to be at without her knowing, and I needed to sneak away because I was dressed in like just normal clothes, like trying to throw her off. And so I left and pretended that I had ripped my pants and I needed to go home, and so I just snuck out the back of the restaurant to go change, which is, if you know me, is a total like plausible thing to have happen, because
Josh ripped his pants again.
Yeah.
How many pairs is this?
To really sell it, I needed my dad to like really act like he was surprised. I like talked to him on the phone, and even he goes on the phone, he goes, "Well, Josh, we're right by Walmart. I could have just gone and gotten you pants and you could have waited. Why, this plan is dumb. Like, why would you do this?" Just to like keep, and he did such a good acting job that that really sold it. But yeah, all these different people really helped make it special, and her family and all that stuff. Yeah.
And I would imagine that you could probably point to anything in your life that of noteworthiness, and you could name lots of people that helped you get to that point.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's where all of us find ourselves at. But, again, the reason why we need to ask for help is the fact that none of us actually have enough resources right now to accomplish what we want to do. We don't have the encouragement that we need. We don't have the insights from other people. When it comes to doing anything of noteworthiness, when it comes to being successful, none of us have all the resources that we need. And so we need to ask for others, and we need to be in community in order to do that. I'm just curious, when it comes to your personality, do you enjoy asking people for help, or is that an oftentimes difficult thing to do?
I like giving. The help. I'm not a fan of having to ask, especially if it's something that I feel like I could do, even though it would take me a lot longer by myself. Yeah, that's not something I'm a fan of.
Yeah, as much as I know it's important for me to ask, I think I find myself doing the same thing. I get uncomfortable. It's hard for me. You and I are not alone. That's probably the majority of people find themselves in that situation. What are some of the reasons why you don't really care for asking for help?
I just don't want to come across as lazy, I guess, for one thing, and then two, I don't want to like bother that person with my problems, and it's funny because like going on the opposite end, if that person I'm asking specifically were to come to me, like I'd be like, oh no, it's not a big deal at all. But like for some reason when those roles get switched, it's this, I feel like they're gonna hate me a little bit more. Like I'm gonna be that guy in their mind, that always asks for help. So. Right. Yeah. Yeah,
no, I agree. I find myself making the statement, I don't want to put that person out. I don't want to put him out. And really, what does that mean? It means, like you said, I don't want my burden, my responsibility, my work now to be on their shoulders. In the book, Baker explains that there are really two reasons why people don't like asking for help. The first one is this idea that people are not willing or able to help us. That people just aren't willing or able to help us. But research actually says that is not true. That even strangers are willing to help if we ask them. So I want us to play a little scenario. Imagine that you are walking downtown and maybe you got your little dog Nacho, And you notice that somebody, they're looking at their phone and they're kind of looking down the street. Maybe they're looking at some signs. And you can kind of sense that they need some direction. You don't know for sure, but that's kind of the vibe that you're getting. Are you one of those people that just kind of naturally go over and say, hey, how can I help you? It looks like you're lost. Or do you wait for them to come to you?
I would say 50-50. It depends like on if I'm actually paying attention to that or not. But if I do see it, I will just go over and try to help them out because that's really simple. Yeah. As
long as Nacho's not like chasing cats or anything, I can see it. Yeah, I think for me, if I lean one way or the other, I don't want to presume that they're in need, and so I'm one of those guys like, when they ask me, they ask me. Now, let me ask you, if that person was in need and did go and ask you, hey, how do I get to this restaurant? Or, I'm looking for this street. Would you be put out by that?
No, absolutely not.
Probably make you feel kind of helpful and good. Yeah.
I look like a local.
Not only are you the right guy to ask because you were born and raised here, but he probably had the opportunity to meet like one of the nicest guys here in town. So it's in benefit of him to locate you. Now, the problem is he's got this narrative in his mind that, no, I don't want to bother him. Look, he's strolling with his dog. I don't even know if he knows this place. And so he's got this narrative going on in his mind. Meanwhile, you have the resources and you have the desire to help. He simply needs to go out and ask. So this idea that people are unwilling or unable, that's just simply typically not true. There's another reason why we don't like to ask though, and that is if I ask, people will think I'm not competent. You brought this up in one of your reasoning. The idea that, they'll think I'm lazy. They won't think I'm capable or able to do this on my own. But again, research tells us that if you are able to actually articulate your need in a thoughtful, intelligent way, people actually think you're more competent, not less competent. Seems a little counterintuitive, but that's the truth. Just classic scenario. We're in class, the teacher is rambling on about something that maybe 90% of the students aren't getting, and you don't want to raise your hand and be that one guy who's like, yeah, teacher, I need some help because I don't get this concept. Because you think you're the only one who doesn't get it, and you don't want to look like the guy who's not capable. Meanwhile, the teacher would probably be happy to ask or answer the question, but again, we're thinking, we're insecure about this. If you were, however, to raise your hand and have an intelligent and a thoughtful question, most of the people in that room would be like, whoa, Josh, sharp kid, man. The way you just asked that question, wow, that's good. And not only that, I needed to know the answer myself. So let's go ahead and kind of drill down on this idea a little bit. How can we become people who actually are asking in intelligent ways help? How can we ask in creative ways help in a way that really engages people into whatever it is that we feel God is calling us to accomplish with our lives? I think it's first of all really important to identify our goals and our objectives. A lot of people just kind of have this idea of, I want to do great things and I want to have an impact on the world, but they haven't really taken the time to really figure out what is it that I'm trying to accomplish, what am I trying to do. It might be as simple as, hey, I know it's important to connect with God in prayer. Every Christian seems to say that prayer is an important aspect of this, but I don't really know how to pray. Well, if your goal is to connect deeper with God, well then maybe specifically you need to start asking somebody to teach you how to pray. Jesus himself walked his disciples through how to pray. Why? Well, because they needed some coaching in that area. As a church, we've got kind of a bigger goal. The goal is to actually train up world leaders who are passionately in love with God and are transforming society with his truth. Well, that's a big goal and objective, but if we just kind of want to do church as church has always been done, well, it gets really gray and foggy. But as soon as you narrow down, this is our goal, this is our objective, then you can take a step deeper and ask yourself the question, well, what are the resources that we need? If we're going to accomplish this goal, who do we need on the team? What do we need? What kind of insights do we still need to have in order to move there? And so I think it's important just to really get that cemented in our minds, and then we can use Baker's really his 5-step approach to asking for help. Now, he refers to this as SMART criteria because he uses the word SMART as a little acrostic. And so we're going to look at his SMART criteria. The first thing we need to do is we need to be specific when we ask for help. Make the request very specific. For the sake of this teaching opportunity, let's imagine that one of your students desires to grow closer to God through Bible study. You've been talking about getting in the Word. They're like, okay, I don't really even know how to do that. But they come to you and specifically say, Josh, can you please teach me how to do a Bible study? Is that specific enough for you?
Absolutely.
If they came to you and said, yeah, I know it's important to like connect with God, and that would be really neat, right, Josh? I mean, would you know how to help that kid at that point?
Not really, no.
You'd have to ask some serious clarifying questions. Yeah, okay, that's true, but where you going with that, buddy? So if they were specific, hey, Josh, can you help me study the Bible? You know where they're going. S stands for specific. M stands for meaningful. It's important to actually bring meaning into the request, and there's 2 parts to this. It's important to explain to the person that you're asking why it's meaningful to you, but you can also bring meaning into the person or to the person's life that you're asking. So again, going back to our little example here, let's say a student says, Josh, I really want to know how to learn how to study the Bible. And the reason why is because I know it's really important for me to go deeper into my relationship with God. Now, as a pastor, is there any meaning that is stirred inside your heart when you hear something like that?
Oh no, that gets me really excited because clearly something's already been working on in their heart, and yeah.
And you're typically like, let's sit down. I've got some time. Let's do this, right? So specific, meaningful. Number 3 is action. You would like to, in your request, make a specific call to action. With your student, probably the best way to do it is say, Josh, I really want to know how to study my Bible. I want to do this because I want to grow in my relationship with God. Do you have any resources that you can give me? Could you sit down and show me how you study the Bible? Like, there's 2 great calls to action. Josh, do you have any resources? Hook me up. Sit down, walk me through how you do it. Okay, so we've got specific, meaningful, action. And then we also need to make sure it's realistic. R stands for realistic. Again, let's say this student comes to you and says, Josh, I want all this stuff. Help me study the Bible. And I am free and would love to sit down with you between 5 and 9 o'clock every night for the next 8 months. Like, is that going to be realistic for you?
No, not at all.
Hey, I love you, dude, but I love my wife more. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. It's not a realistic request, so we need to make sure it's realistic. And then finally, we need to put some time to it. So T stands for time, and there's, again, a couple of parts to it. One, really be specific about when you want it done by, or let them know, the person that you're making the request of, let them know that they're not going to have to do something forever. So there's a limit, like, hey, Josh, for the next month, do you mind sitting down with me after church on Sunday and walking me through this? So Josh knows, hey, it's not for the next 8 months, it's just for a month. Or by Friday, I would really love some of those resources that would help me get into God's Word. Okay, Josh knows I need to get this to him on, or at least before Friday. So again, what are those steps? Be specific, meaningful, have a point of action, make it realistic, and then give some time so that they know what's going on. Now, I want to speak a little bit into some people's lives who do not have a problem asking. You may find yourself asking too much for help, and you're becoming a drain on those around you. That's typically not the case, but sometimes it is. And there's really a law at work here, and it's the law of giving and receiving. And so we need to make sure that, yes, we get comfortable asking for help, but we need to be generous with our lives and our own personal resources. I heard one leader describe it this way. He described how we all have a bucket and a ladle. And so we're all in our lives, depending on who we are doing life with, we are either taking that bucket, and he kind of, I think, said, it's full of water, or whatever you want to use to in your mind to picture this. But depending on your reactions or interactions with people, you're either ladling into people's lives, into their buckets, or they are ladling into your lives. And this is how it's supposed to be done. When you're in community with people, you are either ladling in or you are receiving. and doing one without the other always leads to ruin. For the person that it says, well, I can't ask for help, and they're just constantly ladling out of their life, well, what's going to happen? They're going to find themselves empty and dry and burnt out. For the person who's always asking and never ladling out, they're saying, hey, give me. What happens? Well, they start to overflow and just waste the resources of those around them. And so you need to be doing both, being generous, but also at the same time, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah. It reminds me of the to whom much is given, much is expected, and like all that stuff. If you're blessed, you should be more inclined to bless others anyway because of the thankfulness of other people.
Yeah.
It should just,
No, good scripture. Shout out. I was kidding.
I couldn't tell you where it's at, but I know I know that scripture.
I'm pretty sure it's in Luke, but I don't know. Someone can fact check me on that one. I don't have chapter and verse, but I'm pretty sure it's
I'll have it thrown up on the screen.
There we go. It's probably in like Ezekiel. All right. One thing I want to leave us with, I think there are probably plenty of people who are watching or listening, and maybe God's doing some things in your heart and your life, and you really feel a burden to accomplish something, but you don't know where to start. You don't even know who to ask. You don't see other people, as great resources in order to accomplish what God has put in your heart. And maybe you're just thinking, man, this is so much bigger than me. I know it's important to ask, but I don't really know the first step in even getting to that point of asking. And so I want to share with you just a simple strategy. And I want you to go ahead and repeat these words after me, okay? I would encourage you to, first of all, join, give, and then ask. So join, give, and ask. The first thing that you need to do, if you haven't already, is you need to join community. Now, in our context, Josh, the church community is where we're connected, and we have joined a church to actually carry on God's purposes around the world. Join a community that has a like-mindedness to what you feel like God is leading and calling you to. Some of you may say, but that doesn't exist. I feel like God's calling me to this, and there doesn't seem to be any community that's trying to do that. Well, then I would say start that community. And you can start that community simply by finding 1, 2, 3, 35, however many people, like-minded people who have that same heart, that same vision, but you need to create that community. So join. Second, you need to start giving in that community. It's so critical that you begin to be recognized as someone who is generous with your time, generous with your resources. Start giving. That's what community is. And then once you've created that level of trust with folks, whether it's in a church or in some sort of civic role, well, then it's no big deal to start asking. In fact, people will be excited to be able to partner with you. I can't tell you how many times I've talked with folks and they'll make some mention of, I really feel bad that I'm asking you to help me. And I look at them like, I'm excited to help you. What you're a part of is really meaningful. And the fact that you trust me enough to actually draw me into accomplishing this, man, I'm excited about it. I had a friend who he was wanting to create these youth conferences all over San Diego and really Southern California. And he's like, hey, Jonathan, I know it's a kind of a pain, but would you mind, being a part of this and, bringing your youth? I was like, that sounds awesome. I'm so excited that you actually thought of me to be a part of this. And it's no big deal. Why? Because he was already giving in my life. And he was also part of a community of like-minded youth pastors. And so it was a no-brainer. So I want to encourage you, again, if you're going to do anything of significance in your life, it's so important that you ask, that you be in community. So join, give, ask. And don't forget, life is so much better with God, community, and purpose. God bless.